Hello again, everyone. My name is Erin Winick Anthony at Erin Winick on social media, and welcome back to Eureka Hour. In addition to talking to today's guest about her incredible career path and passion for space, we're going to dive into talking about today's SpaceX Starship launch. Today's guest is a really incredible person and digital science space creator. Here today is Athena, also known as Astroathens. She's a fellow STEAM educator, space expert, and has even visited Starship in person. So please join me in welcoming Athena. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
So ecstatic. Just post-launch vibes.
Fantastic. I know how it is. So I give you a little intro, but would you mind kind of telling our audience a little bit more about yourself and who you are?
Of course. Well, hello, audience. So nice to virtually meet everybody here. As Erin mentioned, I'm a digital creator. So that is one of the main things I do right now is through my platform, Astroathens. So I create a lot of different science content, mainly around space exploration. And that is one of the just main things that I love doing is being able to communicate science to others and doing it in a really fun, kind of funky, quirky way. And so I do a lot of that online and currently in school right now to actually finish up my degree in astrophysics as well. So that's my life right now.
Very cool. I love it. And now I have to know, do you have a favorite project that you've worked on as a communicator? I know you have done so many different things. Does one kind of jump out for you?
A project as a communicator. Being able to just work probably in television mostly. So some of the jobs I've been able to do for TV, whether it's online or just like, cable TV. So I got to work recently on a show called Suppressed Science that's aired on Curiosity Stream. And that was so much fun, mainly because I was kind of doing something similar to what you're doing, Erin, here on this show, is being able to speak to scientists that are just working on really groundbreaking research and making really awesome discoveries. And this was really tied around a lot of different areas of science that might not be super popular or might be slightly controversial. And that was so much fun because we did this one episode about kind of the merging between human and machine. And that was a really fun episode because I got to sort of tinker with some of the technology out there that's kind of making that happen. Like making our touch sensors connect with like touch sensors of a machine and electronics. And it was a really fun episode. Like that one a lot.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. And now, how did you originally get interested in space? Because ever since I've known you, we've known each other for a little while now, space has been your thing. Like, where did that originally come from for you?
It started probably about 11 or 12 years old. It did not start, I would say, like a lot of my awesome friends in space who had the honor of being able to look up at the sky and see a lot of stars. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, so there were not a lot of stars to really see.
Fair.
It was you'd be lucky if you saw one or two, and most likely they were a planet, Venus or Jupiter. So it actually started with a book. It was a predominantly picture book of images taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. And it blew me away. I remember looking at these pictures thinking that they were paintings or that they were anything other than real photography. And when I found out that these were things that existed that contained tons of planets beyond my capability of processing at that age, even today I can barely process it, meaning thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of planets that can be contained in a galaxy. I kind of just had like an existential crisis at age 11. It was like,
wow,
this is pretty
one.
epic. Yeah. And I just remember thinking, I'm like, there definitely has to be life beyond Earth. And that is what really drew me into astronomy and space exploration. And I just thought, I have to do this with my life, is try to help make contact for the human species with another kind of life form that's not on Earth. And so ever since that day, I was like, I gotta find the aliens. This is why I'm in it. And yeah, so that was a big reason.
Oh, that's a super cool goal and motivation to have, a very lofty one. But man, I hope we get that in your lifetime and you're able to help make that happen.
Yeah, right. That would be pretty epic. Mainly through, I was thinking like through SETI research, so search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Really awesome, program that started through Frank Drake. It's just mainly in radio astronomy, and I've never actually even really I've never done research in radio astronomy, so that would be something really interesting to kind of dive into. But all this awesomeness around exoplanets and all these wonderful space telescopes that are being able to discover new exoplanets, I think that might be more where we might have the potential of possibly finding life, or even the moons within our own solar system, like a bunch of moons. We might not have to leave our solar system to find life.
Starship, which is one of the big news of the day in the space world. So first of all, do you want to kind of say what the news was and what happened this morning?
Yes. Oh my goodness. So it was the maiden flight, the first flight ever of the fully assembled Starship rocket. So it basically has Starship on top of the booster, which is known as Super Heavy when it's fully assembled, and it launched. This was the first time that it had ever done that. This was the first time that they launched this vehicle, and it's such a big deal because the plans with this vehicle is to bring people to the moon and Mars one day. And it's fully reusable too. This is it. Yes, we're going to rewatch this. Yes.
Absolutely. I was up this morning. It was a great way to start the day. I was eating some cereal while watching this blast off. If you want to talk about what we're seeing here on the top is actually where you said the Starship, and then the big tube underneath is the actual rocket itself. And you can kind of see where they would separate from each other. Hopefully, I mean, one day, well, you'll see at the end. Maybe there was a little something at the end that didn't go exactly to plan, but it was a super, super cool thing to see this morning, and honestly, just a huge milestone for space exploration.
Yeah, so, I mean, it looks like a skyscraper when it takes off too.
I know, and interestingly, it's just a little taller than the Saturn V rocket, if you're familiar with that from Apollo era. So you'll see it takes a little while to actually clear that tower there, but it's got a lot of power there. Do you have a reference for how much power is actually behind that rocket?
I don't have it off the top of my head. Does it say it here? It just says speed.
They might. I know that it's supposed to be the most powerful rocket, though, that has launched. You can see it lift off over Texas here, and a lot of rockets and engines on the bottom of that thing.
Well, what was really interesting too that they were mentioning was that you could probably actually see a few engines here. Like you see little dark spots on the right side. A few engines were out like during the launch. I don't know if it was during liftoff like this. I could be totally wrong with what I'm seeing, but
I think you're right.
Hosts of the webcast were saying that there was a few engines that but it was still flying because there's a bunch of engines underneath this booster we see. And then when the top black part separates from the bottom white part, there's a bunch of engines inside that top black part. So there's more engines because then the idea is for Starship to then land vertically on Mars with people in it, and then it can lift back up and then go to the next location on Mars, from this town to that town. You could see here that there's some engines out.
Yes, those little dark spots where you feel like there should be something.
yeah right. Definitely looks weird that that's not, but oh my goodness, yes, so much power behind this one. And if you guys have got to listen to the webcast if you haven't seen it either, because you can just hear the roaring of all the employees too.
Of the first stage.
Yes.
Tracking station now acquiring the vehicle. With shutdown, we will get separation of Starship from Super Heavy and ignition of the Starship engines. When Starship
it's hard not to be excited when you hear everyone get so excited there.
Sequence. If all goes well, those 6 engines will burn for almost 6.5 minutes. Onboard view from Starship.
Oh, we got some info from Stealthy Timo there.
On the second stage.
17 million pounds.
Oh, that's awesome.
Prepare for stage separation. Now, after stage
separation,
here's where some stuff
and begin a boost back
normally should happen that might not have. Do you want to mention at all what normally we'd be expecting to see here?
Yeah, so I do, I want to mention real quick first also is that
Yeah.
all the cheering too is you're hearing from people who literally
Continuing to
like
fly.
spent their whole
2 minutes, 40
lives
seconds.
working
Let's
on
get
this,
ready
or
for
like
main
so
engine
much of their lives,
countdown.
so much of their days, so many hours. And so it's within them to be like, yes,
Beginning
like
to flip to
you're
stage
going, you're working.
separation.
So it's happening here. They're saying waiting for stage separation to happen. That's what this view would be here. Those are the engines waiting to ignite on that top half, the black part of the rocket. And what happens is ultimately it doesn't separate, and now it's just starting to spin. And you could hear the
Yeah.
concerns too in the people. They're like, oh goodness.
The sounds have changed.
The sounds have changed. Yeah, definitely concerned. But this is something that was, not expected,
now,
but
we
it's something
are
that they knew was a
awaiting stage
possibility.
Where
And
Starship
here she even
could
says it.
separate from the super heavy booster.
Yeah. And so this isn't
Kate,
considered
right now, it looks
a
like we saw
failure
the
by
start
any
of the
means.
flip, but
Honestly,
obviously we're
SpaceX was
seeing
just
from the ground
hoping
cameras
to clear the
the entire
tower, that
Starship
initial
stack
thing that we
continuing to
saw at the
rotate.
start.
We
And if
should have
that
had
happened,
separation by now.
success.
Obviously, this is,
But
does not
Exactly.
they
appear to
gathered
be a
so much
normal
data from
situation.
all of this, and honestly,
Yeah,
it
does
did
appear to be spinning,
tremendously.
but
So
I do want to remind
really excited to
everyone
now
that
see what happens in the future, because it's just
everything
how SpaceX
after
works.
clearing
You
the
know,
tower
they test
was icing on
often,
the cake.
and they have a lot more rockets ready to go. So I think, wrong, was it a few months that they hope to do something similar again? And here,
I haven't heard
cheers to
exactly
the
what. Yeah,
Philippines.
An exciting end.
and it rains rocket.
Inaugural integrated test
but-
flight.
Yeah, that's just so great. But you hear everyone
There's all the
cheering,
people.
and yeah, and they're just like, look, it launched, and yeah, they're just gearing up for the next one, Erin, like you said. I don't know when it's supposed to be.
And make it this far into the test flight, the first integrated flight of the booster and the Starship vehicle.
Fantastic. So
yeah.
super exciting this morning to see all that live for sure.
Yeah, it was just, I think what was so great about it was the combination of kind of like all the enthusiasm of the people, who worked on it, all the enthusiasm of the people on the beach. And then just being able to sort of watch this go down, I mean, this is history in the making. And if you think about kind of like this is like a very large scale of kind of like experimenting with something, say in the kitchen, for instance. It's like sometimes like you might add a little bit too much pepper and your meal's gonna taste a little bit too peppery, and you get it anyway. But maybe
Yes.
maybe some people might throw it out. But with this, it was it's there. It's a test. The whole point was for it to kind of be tested and like know the limitations, know the boundaries, know what needs to be fixed, know what needs to be adjusted, what needs to be changed. I mean, there's just such minor alterations that have to happen sometimes with launches that are just so massive that this kind of stuff happens quite frequently. And they always, they'll always clear out the area, make sure that wherever its trajectory is, so where it's heading towards, that it's going to be clear underneath. It's over the ocean typically. Then they'll usually go pick up the scraps of whatever they're able to find, and then work on the next one. But yeah, when I was down there were so many like assembled, like so many starships, several boosters. There was one, I saw this one on the launch pad, which was
cool.
Super exciting, already assembled, or I guess waiting to be rolled out, but it was in the launch pad area. And then next to it was a crane with a whole bunch of other Starship top halves just waiting to be lifted and assembled onto their booster.
Well, I think we have a video of you from your Instagram kind of walking around next to these. And what I love is that it really is on the beach. It's such a, often we are launching rockets, obviously near the ocean. Kennedy Space Center in Florida is near the water. Out in California, we have Vandenberg, we have Wallops up in Virginia. But it's very interesting to see this one down in Texas, which is a different area for a launch like this to happen, but still on the beach here. Do you want to talk about anything you're kind of pointing out in the video?
By now you already know. I guess the most important thing would kind of be you could see the two differences here. So you see to the left side, you have that booster because it has a very different top. It's flat on top. That's because it's meant to connect to the bottom of the other one. So that would make a little more sense for anyone who maybe hasn't really kind of connected the dots just yet for how it'll be assembled. So these have flown already. these have all already done their test flights, and they've landed in that same area. So I understand that we did have a question about where these land. And it's within the same area, the same facility. I don't know exactly where the landing pad is. I don't actually remember even seeing it when I was there. Oh, that's really cool. You could see, so some of the carbon fiber patches were starting to, were gone. So they started to get lost during flight. And on that one, that's what the zoom in was. It's really crazy to be right there and be that close. And these are a bunch of beachgoers. Everyone's just kind of like walking, Yeah.
Just a normal day at the beach, hanging out next to some rockets, just pretty normal.
Seriously. I mean, there was like not really a lot. Like, you would expect, there'd be like a whole bunch of security and, barricades, and it wasn't. And that's, I think, what people love so much about not only this launch facility, but just kind of SpaceX in general. I think they just keep things like really transparent with the public. And I think it's really admirable. And I think it inspires a lot of people, not only our age, but like kiddos, like young children who are like, this is awesome. I want to be able to like see like how to do this myself, And I think that, not having so much kind of like mystery or secretry to sort of rockets is the way to do it. And I think that they're doing a really awesome job of that.
It's very interesting to see how that's evolved over time because, SpaceX in their early days, in their very first rockets, didn't publicly broadcast it. But it's been an evolving thing over time. And as their launches have become such a public thing that they're broadcasting all the time, now their testing is too, and everyone's paying attention and watching everything like this. I mean, when I tuned in earlier this morning, I saw over 1 million people were watching this live stream, which that's incredible, they aren't advertising this very heavily. People just have like learned it's happening, and that many people are interested in watching this live. That's a pretty fascinating thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's become like a form of entertainment also for a lot of people because there's a tangibility to it. It's like, we could potentially access this one day. There's more and more space tourists that exist. Tourist astronauts. Yes, same. and so like, there's just like so much more hope, I think, that's being embedded into the human race and to be a part of this space journey. I think that it's a very defining moment for humanity. It's like we're starting to now become off Earth and start to become, possibly settlers on another planet one day, permanently.
Man, I wanted to mention too, I know you had said you had a swimsuit that you liked that had a pattern on it. Is that the one you were wearing in the Starship video too? Or
yes.
Because if so, do you want to bring that back up and talk about what the picture is on that swimsuit?
Yes, it is the very first deep field image taken by JWST. So that brand new space telescope that just launched to space not too long ago, or that just started sending pictures back not too long ago, launched about, I think, a year ago, was it? 2 years ago? 2020? I don't know. We'll look it up later.
Yeah.
But that image, it has, I don't even remember the number, but so many galaxies in the picture. You might know it. It's in the millions that are just so. Like you can't even really see. If you zoomed in on all the pixels, you'd be able to see even more. But it's just a deep field image, and what that just means is like what it sounds like. I mean, you're seeing so far back into like history of our universe. This peered into, I think, like some of the earliest stages of the formation of the universe, like just after the Big Bang. So I think the image probably dated about like 13.6 billion years ago. If I'm not wrong, I could be completely wrong.
Technology is crazy.
But that's what I think I remember. Technology is insane. Optics is insane. The fact that like everything we look at in space and even looking at each other is like kind of delayed, is kind of late, is kind of in the past. And even the light that comes from the sun is 8 minutes in the past. And so, it's kind of fascinating to think about how light works through just this universe that is just so big. We can't really like completely fathom it because we're so small compared to it. And I don't think small is a bad thing, by the way. I think like anytime I've sort of spoken with people sort of saying like, I don't like the idea of us being so small in this giant universe. And it's like, I think it's a great thing. I think that I think it's a really wonderful thing because it just means that there's so much more potential out there to reach for. If we were super big, then things might seem kind of too small for us and boring. So being on the smaller end and things being much bigger, I think is a pretty fun thing.
We have the chance to explore all of that greatness that is out there. I like that perspective on it. It feels a little less scary too.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been in space, so who knows what it's like being beyond our, nice, cozy, warm planet.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot to explore here too. Well, we're coming near the top of the hour, but I have a couple more questions for you. In the meantime, I just want to remind people one more time, if you have any final questions that you want to ask, please drop them in the chat and we will try to get to them before we leave. It is followers only, so make sure to follow Mission Unstoppable and you can drop your question in there and we'll try to get to it. But before we wrap up, I had a couple more things I wanted to ask, one of which was, do you have any career advice for people that are interested in maybe going down this kind of combo of communicator space route, and how they might be able to explore that a little more before they commit to that as a career?
Yes. The first thing I always love telling everybody or recommending to everyone is what I did, which was volunteer at a museum. I mean, it's so helpful to learn how to speak around people, and how to communicate and connect to humans. I mean, I did it because I really love connecting with people. And the first place I volunteered was the Intrepid in New York City. It's a giant aircraft carrier, so giant Navy ship.
Yes.
But the Space Shuttle Enterprise is on there. And that was the very first of all the Enterprises. Never flew to space. It's a prototype, but very, very important. It did a lot of testing and even glided within our own atmosphere. But doing that was really helpful because you can start to sort of learn not only, I think, how to present in front of people and talk in front of people and kind of get all the shakes out, but you're a volunteer. So you don't have to feel so much pressure, I think, as you would if you right away jumped into doing a television show.
Sure.
And then also the thing I liked about it was you start to learn. I mean, if you're volunteering at a science museum, there is expectation for you to have some knowledge and stuff. They might provide you with some information, a little, booklet of some paperwork. And so you start to familiarize yourself with terminology, maybe in the field that you're interested in. And that was a big reason I did it too, which was to just sort of familiarize myself with, all the terminology that comes with space. I got myself used to saying carbon fiber panels and the heat shield and globular cluster, even though that wasn't part of it. But these are really crazy terms that people aren't really accustomed to if you're not in science.
How old were you when you were actually volunteering at the museum?
Maybe 19 or 20.
Okay. Cool.
So older. I wasn't super young. Definitely recommend doing it probably in high school if you can. High school, college,
Cool.
or even younger if you want to. I mean, start working. You can even work with local astronomy clubs or local space camps. I mean, there's just so many programs out there now that you could just volunteer with. And being able to do that, you get to meet a lot of community also. And I think some of the most important things about pursuing a career in any field, really, I mean, whether it's total polar opposite, you're going into law, maybe it's space law, but you're going into law, or you're going into fashion, or you're going into science, meeting community. So meeting like-minded or people who are interested in the same things as you. It doesn't really matter about kind of like-minded, but just people who are interested in the same things as you. Cause then you get different perspective. You get, you get to learn about things that you don't know, it's kind of entering in, just being completely, open to learning stuff and just kind of open to absorb.
Do you have any other fun projects coming up that you want to mention or places you want to direct people to?
As far as projects go, I mean, I'm mainly just focused right now on completing my degree. So just
that's a big
full-time
project.
Student mode.
Yeah.
Big project. So definitely that. I jump into my astrophysics courses next semester. So I'm so excited for that. It's going to be really, really fun. And otherwise, I mean, just, check out what's happening next, check out the Artemis missions, see what's happening with that, when, what the next updates are. I'm going to just shout out a resource really quick that I use all the time, which is Spaceflight Now. They're my favorite go to. I have their app. You can go to their website, Spaceflight Now. I think their website is Space Launch Now, but either way, so good for staying up to date on launches. So if you're really more into rocket science, rather than astronomy, I recommend checking that out. For astronomy, there's a bunch of great apps like Skywalk or Sky Guide or Sky Safari Plus that let you know kind of about what's happening in the sky, if there's a meteor shower coming up and, comets or anything like that. And if you guys wanted to follow me, I'm pretty consistent. It's Astroathens on all my platforms.
That's great. Highly recommend you go follow her too. Like I said, that's how we originally connected, was on social media, and she puts out awesome, cool videos on TikTok and Instagram. So definitely go follow Athena. And I want to say a big, big thank you for being here today and walking through all things Starship. It was such a pleasure to have you here. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Erin.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for having me.
If you're watching this, you must have really liked the video. Make sure you follow and subscribe, and check out these other videos that are even better. No, really. I've seen this one over 100 times.